Hello guys, welcome to a new video on Tower of God New World, and this is the promised video on who to select for the non-stop SSR Plus Limit Break Summon event. And yeah, I kind of struggled to figure out how to present the information, to be honest, so I decided to go with some sort of matrix of sorts. Basically, we will have the whole thing split in 4 quadrants. The like the rows will be whether you have abundance of revolution mats or not. So as you can see here, the yellow one is abundance of revolution mats. The purple one is lack of revolution mats. Then we have the columns that are split between abundance of good ignition weapon sets or ignition weapon mats, and the other one is lack of good ignition weapon sets and ignition weapon mats. It's a bit tricky the way it's laid out, so I will obviously explain it in this video. I hope it's not going to be too long, and I hope it will make sense with you guys. So based on your current state, like your current progress in the game, your current uh, invested units and stuff, the decision you can make will vary quite extensively, but I tried to simplify it as much as possible in this way because mainly, let's say you just started the game, you will be in this quadrant pretty much. If you are already quite far into the game, you might have enough ignition weapon sets, but not any kind of revolution mats for some reason. Well, not for some reason, just they are quite hard to come by. So you might be in this quadrant, but it could also be that you have a lot of revolution mats because you saved them, you did not spend them, but you already like spent all your keys or you just upgraded some odd ignition weapon set. So there is also this quadrant here that's going to cover that case. And then the case where you saved up everything, you have the ignition weapon keys and sets built, and you also have a lot of revolution mats, then you are in the top left quadrant that we can see here. Now regarding where to start, I would say we should probably start where you have nothing at all. So you have no ignition weapons, you have no revolution mats, which is where most free-to-play players will be at as a point, I would say. And for these, my recommendation tilted more towards those units that actually do not need any kind of investment to work. A prime example is Ren, because as long as he has the red 1, or better 3 red, just for the additional damage on the special move, he is already fine. You don't really need investment in the sub nodes. You don't need any kind of crazy ignition weapon because all he needs is 62% in both resistances, and you're fine for most content in the game. Now, the thing is, that could be a bit tricky to get, especially on a good L set, but you're not forced to use L at the beginning. You can just run whatever. Just give him main stat, magic resistance, main stat, physical resistance in slot 4 and 5, and you're good. You will have more than 62%. You don't need to worry about anything else. You can optimize later. So this guy is absolutely a great pick in any point in time in this game. The additional thing is that he also scales really, really well in late game. So when you will have the resources to invest, it will only get better. It will be a total monster. I don't even think it makes sense to show mine, but mine as an example is still running the effect resistance magic pierce variant, which basically this is giving me 16% physical resistance, which is nice, but my magic resistance is a bit low. I have 77% magic pierce. At the moment, I don't have a lot of investment in the revolution, so I only have 30% magic special move pierce and 15% max cooldown reduction. And I also have this 300% effect resistance, 220 from the boots and 80 from the origin orb. So this is kind of what you could aim for. You can also easily get 100% crit hit rate just from the revolution alone, and then you can just get as much crit damage as you can. But I also did not max neither the crit rate nor the crit damage. So this guy can only get better. He's a monster. So he is my first priority, I would say, if you are in this situation where you have access to almost nothing. It will work in any case, and he only gets better. The second best option that I put here was kind of hard, to be honest, to recommend. The main thing about Evan is that he's a unit you would not normally dupe up. You would just leave him with no dupes because he's the same, like he doesn't really improve until you get to Rainbow 5. Because that early special move is extremely beneficial and can open up some more offensive compositions. But until then, it's basically the same. It doesn't matter at all. So nobody would normally dupe him up. But if we have 900 pulls on one unit alone, it could be worth a shot to invest in him. It doesn't require anything and will boost the yellow team massively, I would say. So he's a really nice pick. Now, obviously, if you don't have a DPS, you could skip this guy because at that point, Eden would be more important, I would say. Now, the reason why Eden here is this low and is not higher is just because if you don't have a good ignition weapon set, ignition weapon maths, and even Essence facility, this guy is going to be super, super hard to get 100% resistances, which is his best build. You don't need Revolution maths at all, but you do need good ignition weapons so that you can get to 100% resistances. That's the only issue with him. That's why it's not high priority, because I'm assuming you cannot get him there. So yeah. We also have Mashini. She has more or less the same problem. You also want her with 100% resistances as soon as she hits Orange 4, because her Orange 4, like her Revo 4 ability upgrade is going to boost her damage quite significantly. So you just need that and you're fine. You don't even need the sub nodes in the Revo 6. That's why she's in the lack of revolution maths section. She's quite high, I would say, in the priority, because you can just run her with unlock the tier 4 ability upgrade and you're good. But then you need the Sundance set with resistances, and that's going to be quite tricky to get early on. So if you don't have ignition weapon sets, she's not really going to be a great pick. That's the only reason why she's still this low. But yeah. Another okayish pick. Let me just see, because I think I didn't copy. Yeah, okay, I didn't copy over the description for Viol. Viol, he's a tricky one. I never really recommend him in normal scenario. I would say you should only pick him if you don't already have him at 3 green. So if he's 0 dupes, you can think about getting him. If he's 3 green or higher, don't. Because you can just get him to 3 red. It will be fine. You don't need the sub nodes, you don't need anything. It will be fine at 3 red. So only think about this guy if the other options are not available or whatever, there are other problems, you can think about Viol, but you should not have any copies, because a 3 green, it can already do stuff and is close to being 3 red already. So you don't really need to waste, let's say, this event on him. That's my view. The other option is Evankel, but again, you should only pick her if you're not running a VOL DPS. If you already have a VOL DPS, she's kind of redundant. You don't really need her, even though, okay, wait a second, I was not showing that cell. Okay, she's kind of redundant if you have a VOL build, because she's just going to be a red DPS, okay? But if you already have VOL, you don't need her that much. She might be better at full investment, sure, but again, if we are in this category, you don't have revolution maths for her. You don't need good ignition weapon sets. I mean, an L set for Viol you will already have, is one of the first sets you build for Iwa, so you will have it. And Evankel can also run the same set, but she also needs kind of a setup with Michael or Jinsung and support Warion. for her to work properly with that set. Otherwise, just run Sela on her and it will be fine. So yeah, these two are kind of one or the other. And I would say if you have a 3 green Viol, both of them are to be discarded, pretty much, I would say. Then we have lower priority ones. We have Child Yuri, just because her Rainbow 5 is huge on her. But the thing is, without Revolution mats and without ignition weapon sets, well, the ignition weapon sets is not a big issue because she only needs Rihanna, and Rihanna is one of the first sets you also want to get right after like L, Sela, Sundance. You will go with Rihanna, so chances are you will get it pretty soon, and is a really good tech set, and anyone will want to get. So yeah, that part is not a problem, but you really want the Revolution investment on her for her to work properly. So she's lower in the list of priorities together with Jinsung. For a similar reason, Jinsung is not that heavily reliant on the Revolution subnodes, but definitely it's a big boost for him. So yeah, the thing is that he also works pretty well at 3 red. So even lower. So even if you don't get him to Rainbow 5, it will be fine. And then here in the irrelevant ones, just the non-priority ones, all the others that were not mentioned here. Now, if we move over the abundance of ignition weapon sets, but lack of revolution mats, we see that Eden moves up. It goes to the, here I put as highest priority unit even before Ren. To be fair, they are pretty much the same, if I'm being honest, just that this guy has crazy good value if you can give him just 100% resistances, and he won't cost any revolution mats. This guy will cost more in the long run. This guy just doesn't need anything. So that's why he's a bit of a higher priority in here, but they are really the same. And I would even say a Ren is a bit more important just because that guy can destroy work. Eden can as well, arguably, especially if you don't have it too high of an attack speed, because the higher your attack speed, the more HP you're going to give back to Eden. Urek. But that's not a big deal. I mean, it's going to kill him, no problems. But of the two, Ren is probably the one that's more valuable. They're both great in any case. Now, if you also have a great ignition weapon set, then Mashini is also a higher priority than before. She's going to be really awesome with the Sundance with 100% resistances. So yeah, definitely a great pick. But one thing I forgot to mention also before, if you have Vivi and Oakin and Rainbow 5, do not get her. Even if you have only Oakin and Rainbow 5 and Vivi at like 3 red, you don't need her. They will do just fine. They will deal enough damage. So you don't really need this investment on Mashini. Viol and Evankel, pretty much the same reason as before. Nothing really changed because they didn't have particular needs in terms of ignition weapons. We see that Evan went down from high priority to just normal priority, mainly because even if you have if you have an abundance of ignition weapon sets, other units become more important than him, not that it becomes less important. Let's put it that way. So it will still be great. You can just run a rune on him and it will work fine. And again, is a unit you would not normally dupe up. So this event comes really in handy for that. And then we have these other two units that were already in the low priority tier, just because even if you have a good set for them, doesn't really matter because Rihanna is a set that doesn't really require much. So it was already considered in the lack of good ignition weapons. These two really benefits more from the revolution mats. So if you don't have those, they would just stay at a lower priority for me. And then we have Mashini that comes up from the no priority to the low priority, just because at that point, if you can give her a dedicated idea set, she will start dealing like damage and stuff. And even if you don't have a lot of investment in the subnodes, she can still act as sort of a sub DPS. kind of unit. So she's still really good. Arguably, I could even put her here because you don't necessarily need an idea or Dory set or whatever. You can just go with the L set, you can go hybrid, you can do whatever you want. As long as you give her crit damage and magic pierce, she will do just fine. The other thing is that she needs like high swiftness, more or less, so that she can cast more skills. And that's why she's a bit more of a higher investment unit, but she's definitely great. So this is the situation here. Now, I know you will have a lot of questions because every situation will be different. So let me know whether you still have doubts for this part, but you should, I hope it's clear enough. Now we move up to the part where you actually have the revolution mats that would allow you to maybe max one of them. But let's imagine you have no good sets. So in that case, the best units are Child Yuri, because again, Rihanna is a pretty simple set to have. Everyone will have it more or less. So that's already taking into account lack of good ignition weapon sets. Because more than good ignition weapon sets, this is more like niche or optimized. Let me just write it as optimized ignition weapon sets. Because like realistically, Rihanna, you just need slot 5 at plus 20 with physical pierce, slot 1 at plus 20, that is the attack piece, and that's it. You don't need anything else. So to me, that's a pretty low requirement. So yeah, I mean, obviously crit damage comes in handy and the sub nodes as well, but mainly you just need those two nodes and you'll be fine. Evankel is also pretty much the same. She shares the same set as Viol and Hiwa, or you can just run a random Sela set and it will be fine. But if you have high revolution mats, those units will just be insane. Because both mages and assassins get a ton of value out of the revolution subnodes. If we have a look quickly here, we can see that assassins get crit damage, crit rate, attack, bonus elimination energy, and cooldown reduction. All these 5 nodes are insane. If you can get them to plus 20, that's huge. The defense one is useless. And even before than that, they just get lifesteal pretty much worthless, but okay. Accuracy is fine, affected, whatever. So these nodes are good. And well, Yuri also gets pretty good ability upgrades. So she gets invincibility at the start of the battle until she hits the first enemy, which is kind of good, comes in handy a lot of times. And she gets also 40% physical pierce on the special move, which is huge. So this is all really, really good. She gets crazy with investment. And if we have a look at Evankel, she's also in a similar situation because mages, other than the first stat, are already great, and they also get the 20 swiftness, which is nothing to scoff at. Really, really good. They get crit rate, they get attack, they get crit damage, they get special move pierce, 60%, which is insane on mages like Evankel. That the special move is basically all their damage, so that's insane. And they also get cooldown reduction as all classes, basically. So this is all great. And if you have the resources, these two units will just be way too strong. Now, as the normal priority right up next, we have Ren. Just because that guy is a monster. Obviously, if you invest in his subnodes, he's going to deal a ton of damage and is basically unkillable. So I really like this guy. I will personally invest a bit more as soon as we have the race event. Well, probably not, depends on how much investment Hiwa and Hirang will require, and maybe also the SSR units. I have no idea. But yeah, I definitely want to max out most of his nodes. This guy is an absolute beast. So yeah, he's also high up in the priority. We have Evan as well, which is pretty high priority if you don't have good ignition weapons, because these two again are using common sets. This one doesn't really have high requirements. You just need 62% in both resistances, which is super easy to get. This guy can just run 4 pieces of random rundas, and that's fine. So he's also pretty cheap. That's why he's this high up and he's higher than these two guys. Because these two guys are really insane, but you do need 100% resistances on their sets. That's the major downside, I would say. We also have Jin Sung, which is pretty high up now, mainly because of the fact that he can run a Ryana, which is again a pretty common set, and he gets a ton of value as we saw from the Assassin subnodes. But his main nodes are nothing special, I would say. Then we also have Mashini. To be honest, Data Mashini. To be honest, she could be higher actually. Maybe I would move her to the left of Evan, something like that. Because okay, it's true she needs a kind of a good ignition weapon set, but not really. You can just give the L set you would give to Evankel, and she will still work fine. So she's awesome. If you have the Revolution mats, she will just deal a ton of damage. So she's high up. She might be, she could be arguably higher than him, and she's also one of the units you don't normally uh, upgrade to Rainbow 5 early on because she gets better, but nothing that crazy until you get her to Rainbow 5. So it's a similar situation as Evan. Then we have again Mashin and Eden. They are both great units, but if you don't have ignition weapon sets that get them to 100% resistances, they are lower priority. And these guys are just irrelevant. Now I'm also going to go over the irrelevant units in a second, but first let's just finish the remaining ones. So here, if you have both ignition weapon sets and a lot of revolution mats, I think while the first two remain the same, Child Yuri and Evankel are both huge. For Evankel, in any scenario, the thing will always stay true that if you have a VO build, I would avoid using her because it's way too like overlapping with a unit you already have. But Child Yuri, you can always go for her. It's just Evankel goes lower in priority if you have VO build already. Then we have Datamashini, higher priority now because you can also give her the right set. You have high swiftness, most likely with the Tree Essence facility. So yeah, maybe I should also specify optimized resets, good Tree Essence. I will also explicitly say Tree Essence facility. Let me just write it like this. Okay, so this way is also easier to understand why these two guys are trickier to get to 100% resistances. Okay, that's it. So with high swiftness, a really good ignition weapon set, and high revolution mats, she is definitely one of the highest priority units. She is really, really good. Then we have Machinit that goes high, like a bit higher because of the fact that you can now run 100% resistances with Sundance because you do have optimized sets for the units. So she's definitely in a higher priority now, right after Data Machine, I would say. Ren is a bit lower priority just because, again, it works at 3 red and it doesn't is not that needy. You don't need high investment necessarily. It works already fine without it. So I would rather focus on a unit that needs the investment over a unit that already works fine without it. So that's why also Evan went down here because here we have abundance of resources. We don't really need to focus too much on Evan. We don't really need to focus too much on Ren as well. Jinsung is more or less on the same spot, but I mean, just because the others are a lot stronger overall. I mean, he's great, but he also has the same issues as Ren. He works fine at red, even purple. So going for Rainbow 5 when it doesn't really get that much, it gets crazy good, with the subnodes, but it's nothing that insane. It already works fine before then. So that's why his priority didn't change much. Add-on went up. Well, actually, there are two add-on here. Now there is only one. Let me see if I also missed anyone else. Here is 8. Okay, plus 7 is 15. Perfect. Okay, so add-on also went up from low priority to normal priority because now you can run him with 100% resistances in this category. So he's a higher priority unit, but I believe other units are more important. Actually, to be fair, let me just move Jinsung below him. I like to change also things live just because I don't know. I think when I think out loud and I explain it out loud, sometimes I notice some mistakes or maybe I rethink something. So it kind of makes sense. So yeah, I think Addon is more important than Jinsung because Addon actually gets a boost from the D5 ability upgrade. Jinsung, pretty much the same, just gets better, nothing more. Just additional damage, additional crit rate, some more spam of special move, which is not like, let me just also specify this. Let's go over Jinsung. We have, as mentioned before, this bonus elimination energy on Jinsung, which is actually less relevant than the one for Child Yuri, because Jinsung will be played together with Waryun, the support one. So you're already getting energy from her. This one is not as needed as for Child Yuri, for example. So yeah, that's the main thing, I would say. And then we have a low priority Evan, because at this point, if you have access to good ignition weapons, these other units are higher priority. But I still think Evan, due to the fact that you would not normally get him to Rainbow 5, still has an advantage over these other options that we have in the non-priority category. So now, if we look at the non-priority, we can see that like 6 units are basically always there. Viol in these cases was out of it, and Datamashini in all cases except when you have nothing was also out of the non-priority. So these 6 units that I've not mentioned for the whole video basically are some of those that are really not needed at all, I would say. At least dupes are not really that relevant. And I will say they are in kind of an order. So if you have all of these units maxed already, you can then follow this kind of order that I laid out here below. So Karaka is the highest priority one out of the non-priority. Then Rak, Urek, kind of. Probably Zahard higher than Urek, to be honest. But yeah, they're kind of useless, both of them. Gustang, no real upgrades, I would say. Just some cooldown reduction on the drones, whatever, nothing really important. This guy is just useless. He gets some attack from the subnodes, but that's it. So I don't know. It won't help him get out of the B rank he's currently at. So yeah, the main thing is Karakan, Awakened Rock work perfectly fine on no dupes and just get slightly better with the revolution and stuff. And tanks, supports, and warriors, which are most of these guys, already have shitty substats. Unless you're playing in PvP and you have to counter the crazy high crit rate that the enemy units have, or I don't know. Yeah, mainly it's just PvP stats. In every other piece of content, those stats are entirely irrelevant, in my opinion. So they're pretty much terrible. And the thing is, Warrior don't even have attack in the subnodes, which is stupid. Supports and tanks do, Warriors don't. So Warriors are really awful. The thing is, T4 on Zahard is nice, and the T4 and T5 of Urek are both good, but their substats are terrible. They are not really like Zahard gets a bit better at dealing with shields, which is nice, and Urek gets better at surviving and doesn't really deal any damage anyway. So I would avoid him too. And this guy is also arguably better at 3 red, because if you want to play him as a tank, you can give him resistances. You don't need the extra HP or the special move to be cast earlier. You don't really need that. You just need him to survive and keep removing the buffs from the enemies. That's it. If you play him Rayana, 3 red is better because it doesn't have the additional HP, doesn't have the additional stats, etc. You just need him to die and explode so that the enemy team will also die from his passive. So 3 red is probably the optimal investment for this guy. If you have more than that, basically you're losing out. That's how I see it. And yeah, I don't know. I don't really like this guy much lately. It's just a buff remover and that's it. As soon as another unit gets the buff removal, this guy is going to be entirely useless. And again, Zahard has a good T4, but a shitty T5 in my opinion, unless you're running evasion on the 3 Essence, which you might. Now with the third page, you can potentially run evasion at any point in the game. But I don't know, I don't like the RNG aspect of it. I would still rather go with the resistances. And also if you go evasion, you are kind of forced to go accuracy evasion in every single node. You won't have access to swiftness, which to me is a big loss. And also evasion will only benefit Zahard in the end. It will not benefit the tanks. It will not benefit anyone. So I still believe resistance plus swiftness is the way to go. But whatever, you do you guys. Then I already mentioned Ghost Tank pretty much useless. Data Urek entirely useless. And I mean, Ancient Rock gets a bit more damage out of it, like 200% against units that are attacking him or something. Should be this one. Yeah, 200% when attacking an enemy that is using a basic attack on him. People told me the damage increase is noticeable. I don't know. I don't think I would go for him. I mean, I still put him higher in priority than Urek and Zahard, but I don't think I would go for that. The attack reduction from the T4 is also quite okay, but I don't know, guys. It doesn't really resonate that much with me. So that was pretty much all, and also the explanation for the non-priority units. Let me know if you would like me to add this tab to my spreadsheet as well temporarily. I mean, for the anniversary, then I will get it out after this all non-stop summon whatever is over. And yeah, if you have any questions, doubts, if you would like to have an opinion on your personal situation, because obviously a lot of things will change based on which units you already have upgraded. Like some of these things I mentioned, like for example, the usual Evankel and Viol kind of interaction. So if you have a Viol build, you don't need Evankel, etc., stuff like that. If you are wondering if you have some of these upgraded, if you should still go for something else, feel free to ask it either in the comments down below or better on my Discord so that you can also attach the screenshot of your units, etc. Again, I hope it was helpful. I will make a video for the SSR units as well. I won't go in this much detail because we have a lot of SSR units, and I think it's also easier to understand for them. And even if you pick a non-optimal one, is no big deal. SSR are easily maxed early on because actually right now for spenders or whales, maxing an SSR unit is a lot harder than maxing an SSR plus. Like I can max 2 SSR plus units without any issues, but I'm having an hard time maxing this guy. I only have him at Rainbow 1. I hope with the 80 summons they are giving us, I can get him to Rainbow 5, but I don't know. We'll see. So again, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.